Happy Valentine's Day, y'all. It's a nice, beautiful day here in East Texas. The sun is out, the weather's getting warmer, and it's been almost 2 weeks since the great General Beauregard Lee declared we are going to have an early spring. So it's time to get planting. And since it's Valentine's Day and love is in the air, I want to introduce y'all to one of my great loves, the potato. Look at that beauty. Now, Valentine's Day, here, at least in East Texas, is the perfect day for planting potatoes. If you live a little further north, you may still have a few weeks to go, but our soil is getting warmer. Generally, you want soil temperature around 45 to 55 degrees when you plant your potatoes here. And you can do, if you have them this size, this one, if you'll notice, look at my hand, probably a little bit larger than a golf ball. These are a good size to plant. If you have larger ones, you may want to cut them into pieces. You can do that with smaller ones too, but especially really large potatoes. Now, if you do go cut them into pieces, you may want to do what we call chitting, which is you allow them to start growth. There's a couple different ways to do this. Putting them in a paper sack is one of the best ways to get them to start chitting early. You may notice that sometimes if you got some potatoes on the shelf, they'll start to sprout here. And it's generally better to let them start to sprout before you cut them into pieces for planting. Now, another thing to remember, if you cut them, is the skin on the potato helps protect it from the moisture and the cold and the diseases that are out there. So if you do cut your potatoes into pieces, you will probably want to let them dry for at least 3 to 4 days, maybe a week. And you'll notice when they're good to plant, because they'll start to turn dark in color and the cut end will feel kind of leathery to the touch. And that's when you know that they've dried up good, got a good protective barrier on them again, and they'll be adequate for planting at that time. And once again, if you do cut them, you want to try to plant that cut side down also. So keep those things in mind when you're planting your potatoes. Now, the next thing to note when we're planting, I already have a few lines of them planted here, and I'll show you what I'm doing, is I like to build up my soil a few inches, 3 or 4 inches underneath them before I put them down. Potatoes like well-drained soil. You don't want to have them standing in water. If they get too wet, they will rot, and it encourages bugs and diseases also. And our great love potato here, we want to give them the best conditions we can when we're planting. So we have a few inches of soil, as you can see here, underneath them. And as we go, I will probably dig down my walkway here a little bit in the middle also, which will give it a place for the water to run and better drainage as well going forward. Then you're going to want to space them about 12 to 18 inches apart is good. You can plant them a little bit closer, especially if you're just wanting to collect baby potatoes, fingerling potatoes. You might want to move them in closer, but I would not get any closer than 8 inches apart in your row when you're planting. You want to have good spacing in between where the plant has enough room to draw enough nutrients to each plant. Next, if you want to have enough room to go sideways between the rows, I would suggest a minimum of 3 feet. 3 feet of room between the 2 rows. More if you haven't more room at your place would be good. The more room you have, the easier it is going to be for our next step in the process, which is called hilling. Let me put this little guy right back where he goes here. Look at that, perfect fit. All right, so after we've got them planted, let's see, these are my Yukon Golds here. We're going to then hill them up. You notice you can't see the potatoes here because I have gone and added about 4 inches of soil on top of the potatoes. Now it's a good place to start. We want to bury them, give them a little protection there. We're still going to have a few cooler nights before it gets to March here, but 4 inches of soil is going to give them adequate warmth so that they're going to start growing. And then as they grow, they're going to sprout up, and every 6 to 8 inches or so they get, we're going to add more soil, which you see I have some of it in buckets ready to go. And over on that side, I have another line of dirt ready to rake onto the hill. And we're going to continue to build these hills up here. And we want to build them up a minimum of about 8 to 12 inches. Go up to about 18 inches of hill on top of them potatoes once the green starts to grow. So, you know, every 6 to 8 inches that we get plant growth, we're going to cover again, leaving a little bit of the plant growth sticking out of the top. That way it can have some greenery, get into the sun, encourages it to keep growing, and it's going to keep on growing, and they're growing up past then. Hilling them more than 18 inches is not really needed. The majority of your potato growth is going to be between where you plant the potatoes and up to about 18 inches. When you go to dig them out later, that's where you're going to find all your little potatoes to be able to harvest them. So keeping that in mind, if you do not have an open space like this for planting, something you can do if you want to plant a few potatoes still is you can plant them in pots. Here we go, I've got a few planted already. A 5-gallon bucket works really good. If you have bigger pots, you can plant more, but if you've got something the size of a 5-gallon bucket, you can fit usually 2 potato plants in a 5-gallon bucket. You can see down in there, same process. Have a few inches of soil underneath. I've covered them with a few inches of soil on top. And as they grow, I'm going to continue to cover them up until I get to the top of this bucket. That's going to allow a little bit under 18 inches of growth there, but that will be adequate. And I've gotten several potatoes growing in these before. Another good thing about buckets and pots like this is you're able to move them around. So even if you live in an apartment and you've got a little balcony, you could have one potato bucket out there on your balcony, grow you several potatoes from just one bucket. I also have these grow bags. As you can see, they're about the same size, probably a little bit bigger, but I do the same process there as well. I'll put a couple potatoes in each and fill it up as it goes, and then I'll roll the sides of that grow bag up as they get taller and continue to fill them in as well. So hope that was enjoyable for y'all today. If y'all learned something, be sure and let me know. If y'all have any tips and tricks, is that correct? For growing potatoes, be sure and leave me a comment down below. And as always, if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, be sure and do so now. It really helps out. I appreciate it, y'all. We'll catch y'all next time.